Alrighty, let's start planning our expansion over into this area. And I'm actually thinking it'd be kind of cool to have like a big giant hill. Maybe it has some plateaus off the side of it. Maybe it's going to be like a resort. Maybe like this could be like our touristic district or something like that. We could do like a big ski resort. So let's put in a big giant mountain. Not a hill, let's make it a mountain. Except we're completely out of soil already. So this is an issue. I'm Carex, and welcome to the City Skylines tutorial where we take a look at how to fix this issue using the unlimited soil setting and the extra landscaping tools mod. Alrighty, let's go. We're in the main menu. So you need to subscribe to the extra landscaping tools. There'll be a link down below for that from the Steam Workshop. But we're going to go into the content manager. We're going to go to mods. Now, the first thing we're going to find here is unlimited soil. Feel free to search for it if you have a lot of different mods already downloaded. But if you don't, you should just see a few settings here. These are not mods. These are added with the base game. I can't stress that enough. Colossal Order put these in as settings. They're not mods. So unlimited soil, though, we're going to want that because we don't have, 300 years to make our mountain. So we're going to do unlimited soil. Then we're going to go looking for extra landscaping tools, which if you subscribe to it on the Steam Workshop, we're going to find it right here in the list. We can see that there's some options for it. These are just the different tools that we get. And we're going to talk all about these in the tutorial. That's the point of the tutorial, is to look at a lot of these different tools and see how these are going to make our life so much easier and our creative ideas come to life. So let's get back into the game now that we have those two things activated. Alrighty guys, we are back into the game with one setting now activated for unlimited soil and one mod now activated for the extra landscaping tools. And we're going to see actually down here as we go towards the landscaping tab, we're going to actually notice that there's some additional buttons down here. This is now the water tool that was added with that. We're going to take a full look at how we can utilize that and sort of my tips and tricks for that. And we also have the ground resource so that we can put down oil and ore in fertile soil. But let's go into the actual tools here. We're going to notice that this window pops up to our left here, and we can move this around as we see fit. I usually just kind of leave it where it is. So now we no longer have that pesky, annoying little soil sign. And let's say we wanted to start making this is set to single. So now we can, instead of just having 3 settings for our brush strength, now we have everything from individual, basically like tiny little squares. And of course, you can see it's very, very strong because the brush strength is at max. The size is at single, the strength is at max. If we set this all the way up, you can make a massive... Actually, let's actually talk about the very, very, very first cool thing about this tool. This is not in the base game, which is shocking. Control Z, okay? Control Z is going to undo the last things that you did with the terraforming tool. That's game changing. That's completely game changing. Do you know how many times you accidentally terraform something and something messes up, or you don't like the way it looked or something, or you need to redo it and you're trying to reshape it the way that it was? No, just Control Z. Control Z. So now we're going to have that every single time. But let's say we go into Strength 1 at the biggest setting, and let's put that mountain in here. Let's put that mountain in here. See what I'm saying? Kind of ridiculous, right? Kind of ridiculous. But we could make this thing very, very quickly. But see, this is a spectrum. This is a spectrum. We don't need it on 2000 size, but we have the option to go to 2000 size. We don't need it on strength 1. We can have it on strength 0.01. That's where I actually like it for doing my, what do they call this? Shift terrain. We can, if we wanted to make a big mountain, we could really do this, and we could come over here and we could start sculpting this up and stuff, and maybe we need a little bit bigger size there, so on and so forth, right? So we could start kind of like, just kind of freely painting. Do you know how long this would take with the base game tools? It's actually kind of insane, but typically I like the brush strength lower rather than not. And we could come in and we could be leveling it. It's kind of interesting because just going through, we still have the same tools as we do in the base game, right? We have the ability to raise and lower the terrain. We have the ability to flatten or level the terrain. And then we have the ability to soften, basically smooth out, a lot of the bits. And then we also have the slope terrain tool. Let's just look at these. Ditch? I never do anything with the ditch. I don't even know what that's about. Typically, the interesting thing is what I would say is for all of these tools, I typically like to have, I would say the strength. You want it really, really low for the shift terrain, because you saw what it looked like when it was at strength 1. It just instantly made this massive mountain. So I typically have it very, very low for this, but if I'm just trying to level the terrain, then I like to have the strength up. So let's say we wanted to make a plateau up here and we want it to be about this height. So we're going to right click. That's going to actually set the terrain height here. And you can actually customize this on your own if you know what height you want it to be. But anytime if you just right click, it'll actually grab the height of the actual layer of ground that you're right clicking. So now that's 118 down there. We could go back to here and that's going to be 221. So once we have it on 221, once we've right clicked that once, we're going to hit left click and smooth this out. And again, I like to have this on pretty high strength because if I'm trying to smooth it out, then I just want it to smooth out quicker. It's not really an issue of building these spiky bits and such with the raise and lower. This can get away from you. Since you're smoothing, it can't really get away from you that much. So we can make this little plateau here. And you know what? Maybe we want to actually maybe we actually want like a gradual, like sloping curve slope that goes up. So we're going to go to the slope terrain tool. And this one is kind of, in fact, it might take me a chance or two to get this right. But like if we hit the terrain tool up here and we right click there, so it's going to be the 21, the 22, sorry, 221, the 221. Now what we do is we go to a low point, and it should, as we pave up to that point, it should create a slope. And I might just turn this down a little bit. There we go. There you go. So now I've actually made this spirally slope it's not perfect. You could keep playing with this, but it's pretty decent, right? So you have to start with you right click at the high point, and then you start at the low point, and then you drag the mouse there, but you don't have to do a direct line. You could spiral it around. It's just as you get closer to that point, that's essentially what's going to be happening to you there. So you click high, and then you start low. This actually took me a long time to figure this one out, to be honest. I'd say usually for the smoothing, the softening terrain, I like it at about medium strength, but it kind of depends on what I'm doing. Just kind of click, click, click. I don't usually hold it because I just wanted to fill in that gap there. And now we could technically, right, we could have a road going up to this plateau, and it would be kind of neat, right? It'd be kind of neat. It'd be pretty smooth. There you go. That's kind of cool, right? That's kind of cool. We've been able to build something, you know, that we had in our mind, some sort of creative vision that we had very, very quickly, very, very effortlessly. So again, it's just really a matter of just getting a feel for this. Like if I'm using the shift terrain, I want to lower the strength significantly, because that can get away from you very, very fast. Actually, let's look at some of these other things. Actually, there's another way to use the shift terrain tool that's really cool. Let's give this some texture. See how these bits are here? There's not really any texture. It's kind of unnatural. Actually, how smooth these hills are and stuff like that. Let's add some texture. That's where these other buttons down here come into play, right? So a lot of these, it's kind of interesting. You could do star shapes. They kind of work. They kind of don't work. Little smileys. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just goofy. But these buttons down here, these different patterns add some really nice texture. And these you probably want, you know, I don't know, maybe 0.1 strength. But if we go here, you can kind of see and just kind of click around here. We can get a nice little textured hill. And this actually does like make it look so much better. And if you over texture it a little bit, you can come up with the smoothing tool, right? And you can try different patterns over here for texturing. And actually, ooh, this one looks pretty nice. But that's basically, you know, just a way to make your mountains and your terraforming creations just look a little bit more natural. That's essentially what all these are for. It took me a long time for someone to actually tell me, like, that's what those were for. So here, let's just go to the smoother now. Keep the strength pretty low. And just kind of do a quick little smooth on this. But it's still going to maintain a lot of that texture. Is still going to be maintained. Right? We're still getting a lot of this nuanced texture in here, even though it's been smoothed out. Wow, look at that. That looks like night and day. Right? That looks like an actual proper made map right there. This looks like part of the map in many ways. I mean, we could smooth some of this out because it's a little janky looking in here. Yeah, we could just kind of do that to kind of smooth out those little pointy bits or whatever. Sometimes it's actually just kind of nice even just going in with the normal tool, and you can kind of do some little, kind of just carve out some little bits here. This is probably too small actually to do what I'm trying to do, but you know, just kind of doing some clicks and stuff. It's not as good as the texture. See, the texturing tool is way better. And again, depending on whether you, with these tools, if you left click, I'm sorry I didn't mention this earlier. If you left click, you'll build up, and then if you right click, you'll collapse it back down. But again, Control Z is really the king of all of this, because that'll get it all the way back down to where it were. You're not going to probably flatten, you're not going to be able to flatten this with this tool. It's just not going to work. So you're either going to have to Control Z it, and just get rid of that, or you're going to want to go back and flatten that or smooth it out or something like that. I think we've taken a look at all this stuff. In fact, this actually, we can add sand with the extra landscaping tool, which is kind of cool. So if we want sand up here, maybe just for aesthetic reasons, maybe we could kind of pretend that this is gravel or whatever, or maybe we want a sandy beach. Why not, right? We could actually just add sand and create our own beaches, which is really, really cool. That comes with the extra landscaping tool. Really, really neat. Depending on the map theme that you have, it might just kind of look like dirt. Oh, you know what we should do? We should put we should make this look like it's a hollowed out volcano that's been like filled with water. So let's do that. So let's take this tool. Let's keep it relatively low strength, but let's get a nice, ooh, see, that's a little bit too much strength actually. A little bit too much strength, but that doesn't look too bad. Let's just kind of smooth that out a bit. Maybe lower the strength. But see, once you get it to the depth that you want, then you can go in with the level tool. And maybe we don't want this to be a perfect circle because maybe that would look kind of unnatural. So, and if we're doing the level tool again, I like to raise the strength up for the level tool. Just kind of, you get a feel for it. You have your own style, right? A lot of these tools, you develop your own style. City Skylines is a game about style, about design and style. That's why these tools are tools. They're not cheats. They're tools. So kind of being able to just find your own style with it a little bit. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we do want to, some of these areas look a little bit sharp and cornery. Maybe we could just come in with the smoother and just kind of smooth some of these bits. So how do we add water here? Let's say we wanted to add a water source. That's when the water tool comes into play. And this is a massive, I almost always crank this down to like the smallest strength of water capacity. Highly recommended that you pause the game when you're messing with these. So the way this works is when you right click this somewhere, that'll add the water source. So now if I unpause the game, it'll actually just try to just constantly pour out water. And here it's actually going to be spawning pretty much up in the sky, which is going to look silly. So let's lower this down, right? And you can see it's actually showing you where the water is going to flow. So if we have it here, it's going to overflow. It's actually going to overflow the lake. But as soon as we get it like that, there you go. It's showing that it's only going to fill up the lake. It's kind of representing how high that water level is relative to everything else in the world. But because it doesn't actually connect, see how there it's starting to connect? That means it will not actually flood over. So there we go. And because this is actually a much larger lake than like a little pond or a little sinkhole that we're trying to fill, I'll go up to like maybe we'll go up to like a 0.15. Still pretty low water strength relative though to a 1.0. We could do that, and let's unpause the game here. Take it up to speed, and there we go. We can deselect the water tool, and this is going to rush full of water. And the cool thing about the water tool is, and it's going to do a little bit of flooding, but I promise it will equalize. If we're worried about that, we could just lower it down just a scooch. But it will equalize. It's just going to it's as that water's rushing in to fill the area up, there's going to be a little bit of mild flooding. And that should just, all of this water should evaporate, and then this should equalize out. The cool thing about this tool, actually, there's a lot of little nifty little tricks, because even if this tool is set to raise the water to there, if you have let's say we lower on, we have let's just go to town with this. Let's have like a, whoops, hit the strength too high, see what happens with, that was a 0.2, guys. That was a 0.2. Control Z to get rid of that. Let's have a lower lake, right? Let's have a lower lake below, and we could actually have like a waterfall. I don't think I'm going to make it look like a really awesome waterfall. This is more just to kind of explain how the water tool works. Okay, so we have this area that hopefully that'll contain the water. Then what we're going to do is we're going to connect this. Okay, but let's also take this and like lower this down quite a bit. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do is create a situation where this water is going to pour into here. It's going to fill this space up and it'll overflow, which is bad, right? So how do you have a water source high elevation and it look good up at high elevation, but then connect down to a lower elevation and not over flood? Well, there's a cool thing of the water sources are actually really, really intelligent. That's what it comes down to. So let's do this. Now the water source at the top of the mountain here isn't that intelligent at all. It doesn't know anything. Let's get the strength up a little bit on this one. This is actually kind of fighting with us a little bit, it looks like. So technically, you can see that clearly this is higher than this here. So this will eventually fill and flood if we give this enough time. But what we're going to do, and the way we could check that by seeing there, see? Like it'll fill and flood. We'll just constantly keep adding water until this overflows. But the really neat thing is, if we put a water source, let's see if we can actually get it to flood really quick, just to kind of, you know, get a visualization here. There we go. It's starting to flood, right? We can see that it is boiling over here. It is going to be flooding. But if we add a water source down here and we lower this down, it'll actually fight that water that's coming down and actually maintain. What these water sources do, they don't just mindlessly put out water, they maintain a water level. See how it's actually, the water's getting sucked into here? It's not just pushing out the water, it's actually absorbing water. We could actually raise that a little bit because we don't mind if it goes up that high. We just don't want it overflowing to the sides. So now we have a higher water source. We have a little waterfall down into a lower lake. And because we're using two water sources, they're kind of maintaining the water level at each specific point. The reason why this area here won't overflood is because there's not enough water coming out of this water source to have this completely coming down with enough force that it'll... Oh, got to lower that a little bit. See, it looks like we could check that. We got a little bit of an issue here. We could just shore that up with a little bit of dirt. Little bit of dirt. There we go. Looks nice and good. Raise that up a little bit. And there we go. So we have looked at we've looked at all of these tools here in just the basic sense, sort of a beginner guide, right? We've kind of talked about what some of these other tools are for texturing and things like that. Oh yeah, this also lets you get a tree brush, which is pretty cool. So we could actually brush in trees. Now these, you definitely want the strength to be pretty high, and you want the brush size to be pretty good. It doesn't do very well with small brush sizes. That's what I like to use the Move It mod to do the tree brushes. I also like clicking on this one, a nice dark red, instead of this faint one, and it seems to put them down quite a bit thicker. But technically the brush strength does work. Here, let's Control Z all that stuff. Actually, no, we could just right click to actually get rid of trees, which is kind of neat. So we have this. So this also comes with just the same tools for trees, and you can do a star pattern if you want, but it really doesn't work unless you do like a giant one. And even then it doesn't really look like a star. But you can see that there is a difference between, there's definitely a difference between one click there, and then if we have the strength all the way up to max, right? One click there, it fills quite a bit faster with the strength up, so that you can kind of customize the strength of the water brush, which is kind of cool. Water brush, I meant the tree brush. Does this work for rocks? I can't remember. It does work for rocks. That's really cool. But it just puts them down very... Oh, no, it puts them down quite fast. So you could actually brush in rocks, too, which is really neat. The small rocks, at least. The final thing that we could look at is the fact that we can actually add oil and ore. And one cool thing about oil and ore that I think some people don't realize is that it changes the way the terrain looks. It actually... Look at this. We actually can paint the terrain a little bit with that. And that actually gives it kind of a... If we're doing a mountainous area, it could actually kind of make these areas look really, really kind of nice. Kind of, you know, very rocky and stone-like, which is kind of neat. The oil areas fit like kind of a deserty kind of a vibe. So you can use these for the visuals of trying to like create maybe an industrial area or something like that. Could look kind of good. It looks kind of polluted. It looks kind of decayed. That could be kind of interesting. Or simply, you know, obviously we could just actually just put these things in here. If we want oil here, put it oil. There you go. I mean, if we have the idea to do a big oil industry, we shouldn't be limited to just where the oil is on the map. And if we don't like the way that these, like, for example, the fertile ground here, see how nasty this looks? It doesn't make any sense. Get rid of it. Get rid of this. Looks way better. I love this dark, rich green. So we can get rid of the fertile soil here. Nice and easy. And this is the oil that we can get rid of, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I liked the way that that stone looked here. The ore, I mean, the ore. So we have the resource. We could use that for aesthetics. We can use that for the actual just painting down the resources, which is really, really nice. This, yeah, that was fertile soil there, which is kind of annoying. There we go. Let's get the ore in there instead. Looks good. There we go. We've done some things, guys. We've done some things. We've taken a look at all of the main tools. A lot of some of my little just general tips and tricks, but really it just comes down to having a feel for it, right? Playing around with this thing is just, it's just, that's what it is. It's just you're playing around with it, playing around with it. But for the most part, this is a nice little lake. Sort of, we could make this a nature park. We could do all kinds of things with this. This is a cool little area. Cool little area. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I read all the comments. Please ask questions if you have any, and I'll answer them. And also feel free to swing by the Twitch channel and ask me questions there. I love talking about this stuff. There's, you know, City Skylines and the mods that we use and just our theories on how we play the game and different, you know, tips and tricks. I love talking about this stuff, guys. So please test me. And I will see you guys next time.